Welcome everybody. If we wouldn't mind, I'd just like to go around the room. We'll start with Patrick and just everybody say their name, and then we'll show the first photo. And
Carrie can introduce the project. Aren't you?
I absolutely can do the project. I don't need to ring the bell. For those of you who don't know what the project is that the library engaged in this summer, it was in tandem with Canada 150, and so it was meant to be showing our digital photos that we have from the past, okay? And so what we did was we not only looked for those photos, oh dear.
I'll get that.
You want to touch that? Not only did we want to show our photos, but we wanted them to be hung in the locations where that building originally was and what was it originally. So when we look, that's going to be ... NFPL.
Okay.
So what we did is make these posters, and actually I have an actual poster here. Now this is just a sample one, but this is the poster that you will see in various locations in Chippawa and in the falls in general. Some will be this size and some will be large. Okay, so it has the historic photo on it. It has a little bit of information. It has who our sponsors were, because we did get a grant to print and do some different things for the project. And it also has a QR code. And the QR code is for those people who come by and have their little cell phones who would like to go ching, and it will take them right to the website where they will find a whole page dedicated to the before and after photos in many locations, not just the poster locations, okay? So this project is going to go on for, infinity, I would think, or as long as the library's around. So there's been a lot of work in the background done to attach these photos to the website so that people can view them for many years to come. So it's the project that we're doing this afternoon is part of sort of an offshoot of this, and it's to capture the oral history of Chippawa and the other locations in the fall. So we're happy that you came today, so that if you have some stories about some of the photos, we're going to try and capture some of the stories, and we're going to hopefully be able to transcribe that into words so that can go along with the photos on the website. So it will be all together, again, for future generations. So I'm glad that you came.
Cool. So I guess the other thing is the library asked us in. My name is Clark. I'm manager of culture and museums in the city of Niagara Falls. Suzanne has done several oral histories with us, as I mentioned before, and we thought it'd be a great way for us to learn. I know I've been here for 7 years and have been too busy running a museum to know the great stories of this city and this community. And what the library's done is put together these pictures, and it has tombstone data at the bottom about when it was built and who owned it and all that. But I think what we're hoping that you do is add the flavor to it, the character, the stories that don't normally go into the sort of the data that goes in to say it was open on this date. We want to hear the stories about who served food, what was your favorite food, who worked in different places. Those types of stories that you can't get in a book, that we don't have it recorded in many places, and hopefully the video lives on forever and the transcriptions live on forever. So people 4 or 5 in the museums, we work towards 7 generations down the road. These stories and flavors of the community sort of live on. So that's sort of what we're getting at. So I guess we can just jump right in.
Absolutely. From my past experience with oral histories, the best bit of advice I can give is just do our best not to talk over each other. It's hard sometimes when we get into a conversation when we're dealing with a few people, but it becomes more challenging for us to transcribe and make it what we're hoping it will be. So we'll try hard not to talk over each other. And just to build on what Clark said, if I wanted professional historians, that's who I would have gathered together. I don't. So you don't have to be an expert on anything. It's just about what you remember, what you saw, what you felt, that sort of thing. And the pictures just are kind of going to launch, hopefully, those conversations. All right.
Any questions before we start? No?
So let's talk about the first image that the library has up. They've also provided us these that we can pass around the room, just to get a little closer.
So Betty's is our first topic. Certainly we all been there.
And quite happily so.
So I guess let's just start off with something simple. What, people's best memories of Betty's or thoughts about people who work there?
You went in and sat on a stool at a counter. And you got your order.
What did you order, Carrie?
Oh, it could be a hamburger, fries, something like that.
Yeah.
But they had a big counter with all the stools. You used to sit at that.
Just stools, just counter service
Yeah.
only in the
Yeah,
beginning?
Mostly,
That's all I remember.
yeah. The counter and the stools, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the tables, I must be so much younger.
We were always in a big room for that. For what's your name? No, when it first opened. though.
Yeah.
Oh, when it first opened, yeah.
For me, it was, my parents had a restaurant, and I remember Tom, so it must have been 1968, I guess, and I had my son in the buggy, and rather than go to my parents' restaurant, this was like an exotic place to go, because I was walking all the way down Main Street, going to Betty's, which was like Sodom Road. That was major for me. And I think maybe you just had a pop or whatever, but it was just that it was sort of, in my mind, outside of town, because anything, past Sodom was the country.
That's right.
This was an exotic place.
It was Willoughby.
It was Willoughby.
And, yeah.
In the mid-1980s, when I worked at Canada Coach Lines, a lot of the day trip bus groups, seniors, Kitchener, all over Southern Ontario, they used to stop there for lunch. I've been there a couple of times with local groups, and there was always 4 or 5 buses there. It was very popular.
Still is. The buses come in droves.
Any memories of the owners? Who they were?
Oh, Judy and Tro, or
Trudy.
Judy and
Trudy.
I don't think I ever met them.
no?
No. Not till just a few years ago. No.
What
Did
about-
anybody know the real Betty? Know anything about the real Betty?
Was there a real Betty?
Yes, there was.
Was there?
Betty Szymanski was her name.
Do you remember anything
Real
about
Betty, I
her?
see it right there.
Oh, is it on there? There it is.
Oh, yeah, it is. No, all I know is she was a lady who had blondish hair. And I know when Joe bought out the restaurant, she moved to the Falls somewhere. That's all I know.
Was she a good pie maker? Because they'd be
Yes.
known for their pies.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yes, pies and fish and chips. It's Betty's recipe they use now in the restaurant for the fish batter.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's on my hit list every summer, the fish and chips. All right, well, that's great. Let's move on to the next photo.
I got it.
Is that down, Carrie? Okay.
This one might have-
Rat trap.
Do you remember it being referred to as that?
I remember it being referred to, but I don't quite remember the building. I remember seeing it, but never going near it.
So that was what I was wondering, is when it was pulled down. So it's now the parking lot of BJ's.
Yeah,
So you remember the building being there
I
at some point?
remember it being torn down and the garage being built. A service station was built. And then Bill Gerber owned the service station after, and then sold it to Joe. Yeah, I still Joe Dexter. Sold it to BJ's.
See, I don't remember it ever being, when I see Macklin House, I'm thinking of what was the barracks at the end of Main
No, that's
Street
the
and the
other-
river.
We'll come to that
The
later.
other Macklin.
We'll come to that later.
All right.
Now, are there still Macklams in the area? The family remains in the area?
No, nearest relative lives in somewhere by Perth.
No.
Dawn was in contact with him, and he just passed away, because she sent me a little letter saying he had just died. But he was one of the latest Macklins. Now, his children are quite aware of the Macklin history in Chippawa.
But they don't live in the
No,
area?
they all live out that way, none of them here.
Yeah, well, this one's been gone for a long time, so.
We didn't expect a
I
lot of
didn't
that.
expect a lot of
It
that.
went down when I was a little girl. Yeah, it was taken down when I was a little girl. So
Right.
I just barely remember something being there. That was about it.
But you do remember it being referred to as the rat trap?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Dawn talked about her a lot,
That's great.
about the rat trap.
All right, let's try that one.
Oh, Baltimore, built in 1814.
It's had a lot of incarnations.
You have 1816.
Okay.
So, I don't think any of you, I took a look at this building as we drove by. I think this building has sort of taken on a couple different incarnations. Right now, so the boathouse is there. Do we have memories of sort of that building, that the restaurant itself? Again,
Well, it was Chaplin's, and then it was, Gerry Brigham had it as a dress store, women's dress store, Village Depot it was called.
Yeah.
But it's been so chopped up, I mean, if you put the building anywhere else, you'd never recognize it, it's just because it's on the corner,
yeah.
you know. But still, I'll feel bad if it gets torn down.
Yeah, it's extremely old.
Yeah. It's a prime piece of property too.
Yes. So being on that property though, certainly it would have been, well again, it depends on which side, it's on the other side of the square. Was that area of the neighborhood busy at any times? Were like, did people sort of, you know, if you came to Chippawa, were you mostly going on the other side, or was like this part of the Chippawa busy, or what did people get up to?
There was just Mackenzie's on the corner, and other than that, you just drove straight through, and you knew you were home when you hit the grate on the bridge. And you knew you were home. I was always on the other side of the bridge. And there was a definite, you know, there were kids that were on that,
There was a
they
divide
lived on that
between one
side.
side and the other.
And then
They
there
never mixed,
were the good people.
except when you got to school. When you got to school, that's when you mixed.
We didn't really, if we lived on that side of the bridge, like on the south end, there was no reason other than Girl Guides and the dormitory for
Yeah.
the dances, to cross the bridge. You couldn't get out of town, there were no buses, there were, they were stuck here. But I don't remember ever coming across the bridge, other than, well, to go to Hog Island, but we never really looked there, at least I didn't. I just wanted to get to the water. Kingsbridge Park.
I was gonna say, this faces Kingsbridge, right? So.
Yeah, no, it's not, it's Hog Island.
It's Hog Island. Just because they changed the name doesn't mean it's really the new changing
It's
name.
not.
I've got at home a book from that building when, who was it? One of the first Cummings, first settlers in Chippawa. And he ran a store over there, and it's 1815, and I've got his logbook of who he sold things to and what and how much it cost and everything. But the book is very fragile. But that was 1850.
That's amazing.
And he had a general store over there.
So,
But it's been the Norton dormitory too. When the Norton was being built and stuff, they made that into rooms for their employees.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it used to be a Norton dormitory at one point.
go to the next one.
I know all this because
You know lots of stuff.
John knew it all.
All right, this building.
Oh dear.
You get to know it.
Yeah.
You live it.
So this building,
Chippawa Public Library. My uncle designed and built the house.
Your uncle designed and built?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? What was his name?
Edward Whiteman. Yeah.
And so I guess I was trying to think of what to talk about the library. Again, we know what the library does.
It's that where the water tower was,
The water tower was here. And it also mentions
the fire department.
the IODE was involved with the construction. How long was the IODE? Like, is it still, probably, there's not many IODEs anymore. Anybody know of any of the IODE members around or
No,
who was involved?
I think that's passé.
Do you remember the smell of that building though?
And what did it smell like?
Lamont, and it smelled musty, it smelled like old books.
The IODE building.
Yeah, the old one.
I was always afraid of Mrs. Bond, so
Mrs.
I
Bond, yes.
hated to go in.
Well, Mrs. Rutherford worked there too, so it was like a double whammy. If you walked in and they were both there.
Are these the librarians?
Yes, the ones that
Well,
kept the
they were,
library
yeah.
and took care of it.
Yeah.
And, oh, Mrs. Bond was scary. To me, as a little girl.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Rutherford was the other.
She was, yeah, the Librarian. She was the wife of George Rutherford, who was the principal. And he was a scary dude.
He was.
He was just very proper and, you know, you had to, I remember, I never had him as a teacher, but I remember him going to each room and telling each class, when you see me or any other teacher on the street, or anyone, any adult who asks you how you are, you say, I'm very well, thank you, Mr. Rutherford, and how are you? Well, I lived 3 doors past the school. And I was walking down the street one day going towards the square, and I saw him coming. They lived on Stranger Bond. And he was coming back from lunch. I remember, I couldn't have been any more than 7. I was petrified because I knew I was going to have to greet him. And I started walking really, really slowly, and I thought, okay, if he hits the front, he'll go in before I actually, no. And so I managed to get it out, you know, and he smiled a bit, and he just sort of stopped, like we sort of slowed down as we were getting to each other, and he just smiled and said, blah, 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 blah. And then he gave me a great big smile when he was walking away. And that was way back when you had respect for your teachers, and he petrified me. So by extension, his wife petrified me too. She was a lovely lady. I mean, I didn't find anything wrong with her, but she'd be in the library.
I just hated the library.
I hope I can get this book out.
Well, I'm glad you came today.
Well, back then, it was a big, dark room with books and shelves of books and stuff, and at the desk was Mrs. Bond. And when you come in, she looked at you and she just shuddered.
Well, it was like you were going to steal them. She didn't want them to go out the door.
I know.
So this library was much better.
Yes, open and cheery and.
Yeah.
Any members of any librarians of this one?
Any what?
Any memories of librarians of this one?
Oh, that was.
Your impression as a young kid, right? That's.
Well, I was a young adult when this opened, but it was funny, every time I took a book out, it was when I was putting in my number that I realized that I had already read it. I kept getting the same books over and over. I don't know why. Wow. So thankfully I don't have that reminder anymore because there aren't those cards.
It's like a whole new book. all the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Brand new.
Alright, okay.
Oh, geez, Evans.
Evans, now there's another story.
Alright, what's the story?
Every child in Chippawa stole something from this poor man.
I didn't,
I only stole once in my life, and I threw it out on the way home. I was
so did I, same thing.
No, I was so afraid.
The same thing, I threw it out the bus window, I thought, I'm not going home with this.
When you walked in, to the right was a magazine rack. And American Bandstand had just started. It was only a few years old or whatever. Anyway, I went in and there was an American Bandstand yearbook. And I took it. And I walked out the door. Down I went. And when I got to the town hall, it was like, and I couldn't have been any more than 8. it sort of hit me what I had done. I hid behind the town hall, going, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I mean, I couldn't even look at this book. I walked back, and I walked up, he was at the back, of course, and I said, and I remember this as if it happened yesterday, Mr. Evans, they stole this book. And he went, I know. And that's all he said. He took it back, he didn't reprimand, he didn't do anything, he just said, I know. I thought, okay, he's gonna go over to the restaurant, because it was by the riverside. He's gonna tell my mother, and I'm dead. She's gonna kill me. Do you know, he never did. He didn't turn me in. And I had put this, actually, this little story on Chippawa Past and Present just a couple of weeks ago. And then all these other people are taking everything that they had stolen too. And it sort of dawned on me, everybody, it was like a rite of passage. You had to steal from Mr. Evans.
I never stole from him. I did from Eaton's.
Oh, well.
That's
Sure.
why they went bankrupt.
He had penny candy in there, it was just,
Do you remember he would stand up at the counter and rub his belly?
I don't remember that.
I do, and every Sunday my father, here, go get the paper. So I had to go down to the drugstore and get my Sunday paper for my father. But he always said to me, go get it from Itchy Belly.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you what we call him.
He called him Itchy Belly all the time because he was always rubbing his stomach.
You raised your hand, did you steal from there too,
Oh,
or
yes,
somewhere
I
else?
did.
From here too?
From there, yes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I was petrified. I threw it out on the way home. I was petrified, I thought God was gonna strike me dead.
Really?
Can I ask a question about that building, that barber shop? Would that have been the barber shop of George Curator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one he had,
Thank
yeah.
Yeah.
That was an
And
exam shop.
Mark Thompson.
Yeah, Mark Thompson.
Who after him, I don't know.
I don't know, George got in there. Then he had somebody with him, who was it?
This says Roy Mama's Barber Shop. You know that name?
I got Roy Mima, but I remember him having a barber shop.
Roy Brigham. I don't remember that.
Oh.
What about, what's the building next to it? What's, what was that?
That was Somerville's meat shop.
Yeah.
That's every time I went in there, it gave me a free wiener. So I ate it all the way home.
What gets me with that picture is the sign. That was the Fox Head Inn, and the room
Oh,
started
yeah.
at $2 a night.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, $2.
Remember that sign? That was an iconic sign in Chippawa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that up there for a long time? That sign?
Years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah. And that, in Somerville's Meads, it was eventually, or maybe before this picture, I'm not sure, Donnie had told me that my father's first restaurant was on the one half of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it was before or after. That was sort of made into a duplex. I don't know. It wasn't very long though,
No.
that it was there.
What was your family's restaurant?
It was Gino's. Yeah, over by the Riverside Building's gone now. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that one, or let's move on? Presbyterian Church.
Way before my time.
That's fun. Well, yeah.
But the site,
Is there still a church that stands on that site?
Yes.
yeah.
I remember when it caught fire. We all went down to stand and watch it.
It was to do with all the fire trucks.
It was big though. You know, the old church burned right down.
So what do you remember about that day? Or the day it burned down?
I just remember the fire whistles were blaring and somebody yelled, there's a big fire at the church. And so we all went down to see, and sure enough, the church was burning. It was a big one. Yeah.
Was anybody from the church? Was it anybody in that, the Presbyterian church? Know the ministers or?
Well,
I'm a bit confused though.
yeah.
It says the present Chippawa Presbyterian Church was erected in 1961. Well,
That's the add-on.
or the
They
old
built,
church,
after that burnt, they built it, there was a brick church.
the brick church, that's the one I'm thinking of. So actually,
Now
the
that's
present
the gym.
church isn't the one that was there in 1961, because I remember having to stop and sit on the steps because I was pregnant with Tommy and I couldn't make it all the way to the square. And it was the old church, not that one. There's one in between
Okay.
that one and the one that's standing on that site now.
And the old church, the brick one, is now their gym. They use it
Yeah,
for
just,
gym.
yeah. And then they moved the manse from the one side of the street, from like the east side to the west side. That was a big thrill, watching them move it across the street. That was major. We lived in Chippawa, that was a major deal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, packing lunches, watching that, that was good.
All right, so I guess the things I was thinking, is, does anybody remember any of the ministers that were at this church? If you weren't in the congregation, you might not.
Yeah.
Christenings or other events there? People you know who got married in there?
I was Catholic then. Go there.
We're coming to that. We're coming to that too.
Sacred Heart's coming up. Oh, the castle, there's the castle.
Castle Gift Shop. Yep.
Yeah,
It's now a motel.
that was moved from.
Are we still from that one?
Park. Wow.
Didn't have candy or things.
That came from the Niagara Parks Commission.
Yeah, that was a beautiful building. It was by what they made in Miss Landing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember they moved, I don't know whether it was the first or second year. It was as a souvenir store for a while, but then Lococo's took it over. And Phil Lococo was a law student at the time, and they had put him there to work. They had the fruit stand out front, and I don't know whether there were souvenirs going on there, but where that awning is where the fruit stand was. And of course, we drove him crazy, you know, like taking fruit. I mean, it was nuts. And he closed up one day. He had a meltdown and went, okay, that's it, I'm out of here. And closed down. But I remember it primarily as a dance hall. It was just swell. They had a jukebox, and that whole end was just hardwood floor and benches around the perimeter. And where that bay window is, that was like, it was just like a window seat. And you just, you know, put your nickel in and got 5 songs and just dance. It was really cool. Yeah.
So who owned it as a dance hall? Do we know?
I remember the daughter, and I only remember her because her boyfriend's name was Gino, and that was my father's name. Other than that, they weren't in town very long. They lived up Main Street and then they left. And then it closed, and it was sad.
It was
It was
sad.
sad.
Be neat if it was still there.
Yeah, and they took it down and put up a motel.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember it, you know, the day that they tore that down? Because that's a neat building. You're certainly going to miss out
I
on
think
Main
I was
Street.
working that day.
I don't know, I think I don't know where I was. If I had known, I would have lashed myself to the building maybe or something. That was like, you know, sort of your,
Hang out.
for me, it was my early teen years. So when I think of being a teenager in town, that was the only thing to do. If you weren't swimming in the creek, you were there, at least I was. And then it was gone, along with everything else.
A few questions I had when I saw this is they're just selling souvenirs in Chippawa, and there's a couple different stores that different sell souvenirs. Do tourists come to Chippawa?
They used to.
They used to?
Drive through.
To drive through and stop, or what?
They would probably be forced to come through Chippawa before the Queenie, I would think.
They're coming from Buffalo.
Because the old Canada coach route went right up Sodden Road or down the Niagara Parkway, so you would have to come into Chippawa to get to the falls. It
Gotcha.
was probably almost like a major route at the time.
The big
Yeah.
buses still do. They come off the Queenie at
That's
Sodom,
right, yeah.
come down there through town.
But it used to
It's
be,
shorter than going down the Queenie all the way to 420.
Gotcha.
They still do, and all nationalities. My properties on Main Street, and I've got Japanese women giggling at my broccoli in front of the house and the fruit, and they want to know what kind of tree it is, and if they can pick raspberries, including Muslims who ask where the mosque is. So if you live on Main Street, you get the full blast of the tourism.
Well, it used to be Bridgewater, when you came off the bridge and turned left, that wasn't one way. So you didn't even have to go to the lights. You could just totally bypass, really. Just come over the bridge, turn left and go straight to Buffalo. Just follow the river down. But then when they made that one way, then you had to actually come into town and then, you know, yeah, left or right. Into town, it was like a block.
I guess the other thing I was wondering about this is that they take down this building and put up a motel right in the square. Was that a big impact? Were people upset with that? What's, you know, it seems like an odd place for a motel.
It is.
It is.
Shouldn't be there.
Shouldn't do it. It's all better.
It's over, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole square has such potential and it's just not living up to it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's start there. Is there the square ever been
A nucleus?
a place where people would do things or events, or do anybody remember events that happened in the square?
Oh, yes.
Well,
Remember
every,
we come
there
from
was,
school, walked all the way down?
we were just talking about that actually, May 24th weekend.
Yeah.
And the whole school, King George would come down, and everybody would, you know, sing Days of Yore from Britain Shore, and Old Canada. And it was a major thing. I mean, the Legion did all their things there. Every Sunday night there was, as there is now, concerts. And when I was a kid,
It was by the Chippawa band.
yeah, it was our own band. Kids running around all over the place. That was another good memory. I mean, the kids were out, I mean, till like 9, 10 o'clock. You didn't have to worry about anything. The only rule was, when that fire whistle goes, you call home, or you come home, one of the two. And if the whistle went and you didn't check in, at least everybody I knew, you were in big trouble. Because that whistle was always going. Tourists were just not paying any attention and they would like drown. So it seemed like every other day the whistle was going. So you had to call home.
But long before that, from what Don told me, it was the place where the Willoughby farmers sold the produce, and it was known as Market Square.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's also
Yeah.
because those German settlers, Alsatian settlers, who gave Saddle Road its name, except it's a mutilation of Satan's Road, Satan's Road, because it was so awful. There were many stretches of corduroy. Now just imagine dragging your horse cart or your ass cart over corduroy.
Yeah.
You know what they call the Satan's Road.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be called Market
Well,
Square.
Sodom is a real, it's pretty close. Yeah.
Way back. Because as he said, the farmers brought their produce in and
It was what, Pelham Square for a while, and then Market Square, or one, either way, Market or Pelham, or Market, and then Cummington after.
Chippewa was very popular back in the day. I read about anyway. I think I read in the Niagara Falls Gazette back in 1920s and earlier. They used to have big summer festivals, like the Canada Day week at Dominion Day, and they would have like races in the creek. And
Yeah, oh,
picnics and all
yeah,
kinds
we
of
did
things.
all that.
And even a lot of the Americans would come over and attend these things. It was like we used to go back and forth a lot easier, and people knew each other, and they would have some wonderful summer programs.
they had
well, it was
greasy
Kin
pole.
Day, Kin Day, right?
Yeah, they changed it to Kin Day.
Kin Day, yeah.
And remember the greasy pole?
Carl man, always got, you always would.
They always
You had
got.
to crawl to the end of this, it was, the pole was sort of in the middle of the bridge,
Fastened to
sticking
the
out
bridge.
with grease all over it.
And a
so-
flag on the end.
And the flag on the end, so whoever could actually get to the end and get the flag without falling over into the creek won. And it was always the teenage guys in town that would do it, but that was when, you know, you didn't worry about lawsuits and, you know.
There was
And then
insurance
the duck
wasn't even a
race,
factor.
the duck thing, they
Duck
were
race.
ducks, they were real ducks.
Yes.
Now, when I think about it, it was terrible. you know, they let all these poor ducks go, and then all these boys, girls too, I guess, but I only remember the boys,
So do I.
trying to catch these ducks.
And then there were swim races. And
Yeah,
boat races,
yeah,
the
there was
boats would race,
stuff.
everything. We'd have a great time.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. And then insurance got in on it.
And then insurance, yeah.
So everything ended.
All right, let's move on. That was great. Norton.
Oh, the garden.
I think of Norton, all I think is rotten eggs. That smell was absolutely horrendous. It was terrible. But if it weren't for the Norton, the town would have died, I think, because everything else had gone, all industry had gone, everything, the lumber yards and the tanneries, and I mean, everything was gone from along the creek, and everybody worked at the Norton, everybody's father, at one time or another, worked at the Norton.
Even not as far back as that. I worked at the North.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, you did.
They had girls out in the plant to do all that.
Yeah, they didn't hire me.
On the beach cruise.
Yeah.
So what did you do there?
At Norton and Chippawa.
What did you do there?
What did I do there? Oh, I said, all right, you did books for whatever crew you were in. They had several of them out there. And so you took care of the bookwork, and you say, this guy's going to go on vacation next week, so we have to replace him, you know, all that stuff. And then they decided there was too many women, they laid us all off, and put if you were, what do you call it, not a worker, the man in charge of management anyway, they had to take over the women's thing, they did not like that.
And there's all the Norton homes.
They were nice homes.
Norton built all those houses for
Did they build them?
Yeah.
They actually built them?
Yeah.
for their-
They moved some of them though, didn't they?
Yeah, they moved them
Yeah.
right on to, down Chippawa Parkway more.
Mm-hmm.
Some were moved over behind the boathouse somewhere in there. They moved them all over.
But the dormitory, the original, well, maybe not the original, because that would have been the Baltimore house, but the dormitory was nice. It was a nice building. And then when they built these houses, I guess that's when they stopped sleeping in the dormitory. And then we used it for, I say we, but dances, and remember Danny
Oh,
Never
there for
was there,
girl
Tommy
guides.
Shannon, I was so excited. Got Danny Never's autograph, I think I still have it too. I think so, from WKBW.
Were those houses for supervisors and managers, or were they the workers? Do we not remember?
I don't know, mostly workers.
I had heard workers, but
Yeah, workers, like we thought.
they were pretty nice houses
Yeah.
for workers. I mean, maybe they were,
Management?
yeah, they must have been.
Or maybe the
Yeah.
in-between people, maybe.
Carrie and,
What about the smell coming into Chippewa?
oh,
Remember that egg smell?
You always knew it was.
you held your breath at Boat Marine Land and didn't let it go
Yeah.
till you got to
Let
the
go
gas
over the
station.
bridge.
It would depend on which way the wind was
If you
blowing.
could hold it, and then your father would drive slow so you'd have to Oh, I remember
But that smell, that was the smell of money though, because that
That was,
kept a lot of households going that place.
yeah. And the sky would get bright at night,
Mm.
fires going in the big ovens, whatever it was they were doing.
A few of you mentioned that their fathers worked there, so what did they do?
All the young guys were on the breaking floor, whatever the breaking floor was, I don't know, but that's all I ever heard. Breaking floor,
My
right?
husband worked at Breaking Floor
Yeah.
for a while, not too long. Didn't like it there, he got out of that
That was
railroad.
hard, wasn't it? I mean, that was
Yeah, hard.
hard, back breaking.
What did they do there? All I know is it was hot, it was fire, you know, whatever
Yeah.
they were doing, I don't know.
Breaking things.
Breaking things,
Probably
yeah.
broke up the whatever it was, raw material,
Yeah.
put the fire, it melt down.
Well, it was
Somewhere
very
around
serious.
in the plant, they had, it was down, I remember it, I worked for Carrie Construction one summer, and we were down there, and it was like a channel of water. And it traveled like the Whirlpool Rapids. This thing was swift. What we were doing down there, I have no idea, I don't even remember. at them days, I was just a dumb laborer, just following the crowd wherever they went. But I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, wow, that's dangerous. Like if you fell in. And I had no idea what it was for. Maybe it was cooling they were using it for, but we had to go down there and unplug something or do something.
You guys should have come with us. You
Did
would've-
somebody get burnt by something that was in by the Norton pump house or whatever it was? There was something in the water and they went swimming and got burned.
Ooh.
Somebody in Chippawa. I kind of remember it, but I don't know who it was. They were swimming near the pump house. Bug.
So they found him.
I take it you're not a Buddhist. As long as it doesn't touch me, it can live.
Okay, so this one was gone.
Yes.
This is the Macklin Manor.
I have believe it or not, at home, a piece of rock from the foundation of that place. Sitting at my table at home. I did that. I went around town and grabbed what I could of the things that were being torn down.
I don't remember that building at all.
No, this was down by 27, destroyed by fire. But I guess what I was wondering about this is a beautiful property right on the, as you get back on the parkway essentially. It's almost park space now. Do people play in that area or is that, no?
I didn't.
No,
I don't think we ever went down there.
no,
No.
I never did.
I got as
Where was
far
that
as the
location
square.
again, exactly?
Basically, it's up, when we say Paradise Point B&B, basically it's, you know, when you turn left on Main Street and then it gets back on the parkway again?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's sort of on that curve there.
Okay.
Corner of Sarah and the Parkway.
Well, there were houses there. No.
Yeah,
No.
there's a big red brick house right where it's at.
Thomas Clark Macklin, would he be related to Thomas Clark Street or any of them people?
I would,
Yeah, I think so.
I would be willing to guess.
Because
that.
Macklin Street, Thomas Street, yes.
I don't think we expected much out of that one, we just thought we'd give it a shot. There we go, back in town.
Before us.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Town Hall.
Old Town Hall.
So, guess what, you know, I was thinking, who worked in the town hall? What did you go to the town hall for?
Pay the hydro bill, pay the water bill.
Town
How
council
many
years
years there?
there.
Council meetings and town clerk ran the office.
Yeah.
And you go in there to pay your utility bills and everything.
They used to have dances upstairs. Remember, actually, I got it from Donnie.
That's where we had brownies.
New Year's Eve ball was upstairs in, what, 1870 or whatever. Yeah, really cool.
You remember the dances?
Yeah, I remember they had dances, there was a hairdresser around the corner and her and I decided to go upstairs and see what's going on up there. They just told us to go back downstairs.
Yeah.
Did they have
It was quite a
a
little
jail?
busy.
Was there a jail in that building?
There was?
A jail?
There was in the
Down
basement.
below.
There was in the basement.
Yeah.
Although I remember that policeman, he used to ride his bike around town. What's his name? Oh, I'm terrible with names. Anyhow, he rode his bike around town all the time, and he mostly ticketed American tourists. Because he knew he had them. But and he has a little jail down in the basement of that building.
Certainly living down there.
Anything else about the town hall?
Yeah, you know, town, you know.
Well, it's virtually unchanged, I mean, except for the top windows. That's what I like about it.
That would be.
The dormers.
Dormers are-
Dormers are missing, yeah.
That's just that it's changed.
Because they don't use that.
Even
I shouldn't say this, but Don went up into that attic area. And he got excited because he took a picture of the Chippawa town crest, but it was only half there.
Yeah,
The other half's in the attic and the bottom half got painted. It's no longer. But he photographed it when he was up there.
What I love about that building is, and I do it a lot, right on the corner, because I walk, I don't drive, so I'm walking everywhere. 9 times out of 10, when I turn that corner, I touch the stone. Because it's the same stone. It hasn't been painted, it hasn't been fixed, it hasn't been cleaned, it's just the same stone that thousands of people have probably touched as they were turning the corner, or kids hanging out, or women in long skirts, or whatever the deal is. That building is the same. You know, I mean, to me, to save a building that's been so remodeled and changed, and there's nothing really left of it. This building, though, is it.
It's a heritage building,
Yeah,
too.
that's true. Of course, the one on the corner, too, where Evans was, that's pretty much, that looks the same.
Yeah, that's never changed.
Yeah. I mean, everything else is sort of the old bank buildings.
The only thing that's changed is where the Somerville Meat Market was, which is now the Royal
Yeah.
Bank.
But there was a house in behind those trees. There was a,
Yes, there was a big yard and a
Yeah.
house sat back in there. And I remember Irwins used to live in it at one point, then they moved to Main Street. But it was a big walnut, or chestnut tree, and there'd be chestnuts everywhere, all over.
and Claire Shuttleworth, she was the painter. She lived in Riverview Cottage
Yes.
on Bridgewater. She painted that scene, but looking from like the end of the bridge
Towards Comeyers.
towards Comeyers, with just one guy just standing there. It was a watercolor. Beautiful picture, and that tree is in it.
So this is the main street.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is where everybody went. Like, when was it busy? Was it?
Everybody was there.
Okay.
Like, people were
On
always
weekends or at
going
night,
out.
or just always?
During the day, you didn't have much in the refrigeration other than the iceman came and give you a block of ice. So my mother always sent me down there for meat all the time, and newspaper on Sunday. But everybody went there because that's where Chippawa was, and everybody just needed something, so it was always busy.
Yeah, people would just sit in the square. Remember that old guy,
Yeah.
just everybody called him Coon, must have been Serbian or whatever. Anyway, they called him Godfather. And he would just sit in the square, and people used to like rent out their extra rooms for boarders. And that's where I remember 2 or 3 of the men that would just, during the day, just sit in the square, and everybody would talk, and used to go in the tree, and just sit in the tree, was looking at the town. It was a nice place to grow up until you hit about 14. And then it was like, there's nothing to do other than swim. We had one bus, came from Buffalo, stopped in front of the restaurant, one bus a day. You could get down to the falls, but you can get back again. So, but looking back on it, even though as a young teenager, it was like, it was a nice, safe place to grow up. Really nice. And now those days are so gone. But remember the light? I mean, we had one light. It
One
was stop
stoplight
then,
in the middle of the
it
road.
was stop then go. That was like, you know. I remember my mother one time, she was on the phone giving directions on how to get to our house. And we were straight down Church Street, which is now Willoughby Drive. And it was always, because I had said earlier, 3 doors past the school. That was it, 3 doors. Never mind the number, 3 doors past the school. But she would say, okay, go through the light. And somebody on the other end must have been going, which light? The only light we got. Through the light.
Okay, we're looking at all these pictures in summer, probably maybe fall. What about at Christmas time? Was there decorations on Main Street?
The bells are the only one, they had a jewelry store
Yeah,
midway.
right
And
behind the other
they
side
had
of the tree.
music playing and their windows were decorated and
That's about it.
that's it. Yeah.
No,
Just curious.
Well, when the Festival of Lights first started, the bandstand was,
a music.
it was the world's largest music box. They put sides on it and, you know, it was supposed to be a music
All
box.
painted, it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
I think somebody vandalized all
Oh, yeah.
the signs or all the paintings, so they couldn't put them back.
Yeah.
Shame.
All right, going to the Catholic Church.
Oh, being erected.
Yeah. One of Don's, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It's being built.
So that's it being built.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody get married in there?
I did. First time. Yeah, I did.
Remembers what the church looked like on the inside?
Pretty much, it looks pretty much the same. They added a whole thing in the front now, like it used to be just steps. And now there's like a vestibule thing first to get into the church, but it looks the same. Statues are different, you know, but everything's the same.
There's a house there on the left-hand side.
Mhm.
And I remember Gold Chucks used to live in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would go there and play with them all
And
the
then there's
time.
the other church, the Chippawa house, that's like right there.
Yeah, that was the other side. And then, I guess the church bought the property and they
Yeah.
took down the house. The house was on the side. I used to go there all the time to play with her. I don't know whether we have floors in her house or not, but I never was
boy.
allowed in. Could never go in the house, we always stayed outside.
So churches often have big events at different times of the year and family get-togethers. Did this Catholic church do that, or?
I don't remember
Do
that. Just communion, I mean, first communion, they had a breakfast downstairs. That was all
They didn't do
they
that.
had catechism
I was
classes.
at brownies there, 'cause I did brownies. I went to brownies and then I led brownies. When I got older, obviously.
My brownies were at King George.
Well, we were the Catholic brownies. We were-
Well, I was
On the top of the town halls where I
It
was
must be because the,
a year or two. I'm 70.
I'm 60.
She's 10 years. Lord.
So Brownie's was in the basement, so what did the basement look like?
Like a basement.
It still does.
Little
It looks
windows up
exactly the
high, yeah.
same. Yeah.
No, and there's still.
Kitchen at the end.
Yeah, the windows are all up.
Somebody else said they got married there. You said you
I
did.
did.
Did you say you did? Did you?
Yeah.
And then where was your reception? Was it somewhere in town?
And no, my in-laws lived on the boulevard, outside Chippawa, and they had a party up there. And we went to the Riverside Hotel, actually, and did dinners at that time. So we had our dinner there, and then went up the farm. And it was not like today's weddings.
Oh, jeez. $800 a plate.
Ridiculous. I'm glad my girls were done.
Any memories of priests that were?
Oh, jeez. Father Nickel was right up there with the scary factor with Mr. Rutherford.
Oh, I loved him.
He was a nice man, but he was very, very stern.
Yeah. Well, see, one of the first things he said to me was, "Now, you're not going to try to make a make out of you. We've got him already. This is what I'd go for before we got married." Yeah, that's what he told me.
He was a nice
He was a real
Father
nice man,
Manny,
but he
I
was
remember
very,
he was- Father Manny was good. It was those nuns that were catechism classes in the basement that was, they were vicious women. They really were. You can cut that out if you want.
No, that's the good stuff. That's the flavor I was talking about.
I was petrified. Of course, everybody scared me at that point, I guess. They just, holy smokes.
They used to trot us over from school.
First Friday for
Chippewa,
everybody.
I went there every day for milk. Yeah,
So
Here.
as a child or later on too?
as a
As
child.
a child?
Yep. I'd go in there and get a quart of milk.
So my
That
mother-
side door.
Yeah,
My mom lived there.
yeah.
Yeah, we lived in the house. My dad had the dairy in front.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what was the day like for Your dad?
What was the day like?
Yeah.
Well, he was only one to work there. He would get up early and start, but then my mother got up and she went out, and I don't know what she did for him. Washing the bottles or something that they didn't have, like today, you know. I know they both worked in there quite a lot, and she didn't do as much as him, but. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's from Gilpin's dairy after the family.
I'm not sure, but I think Don had a milk bottle from there. I don't know, my girls packed it.
John had a milk bottle for me.
I know we have a poster from the dairy,
Yeah.
Chippawa Dairy, with a little girl on it, and it's beautiful. Just a beautiful,
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
and it says Chippawa Dairy.
So this was,
Well, we
is this
tried
a fire?
Holland.
What?
Fire.
There was a
Yeah.
fire, and it was in the, just in the, like, you know, in the wall between the house and the
yeah,
house, and they
yeah.
couldn't ever figure out what even started, what happened, but they were all through.
Wow.
Was that when you were there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What year would that picture be?
Oh.
Yeah.
What year was the fire, Mom? Come on, remember.
Okay, I was 14 when I came here. What year was that?
1960.
This would be a couple of years later.
Yeah, Gilpin's Dairy.
My dad had worked for dairies all his life, and he heard about one on for sale,